And we're back.
Welcome, everybody, to episode 244 of No Direction, the No Direction Network's Pathfinder news, reviews, and interviews podcast. I'm Ryan Costello.
And I'm Jefferson J. Thacker, also known as Pam.
Have you been playing a lot of online games in the last year? Of course you have. Or otherwise, you just haven't been playing a lot of games because there's a quarantine. And basically, a group the size of a party is illegal in a lot of places. So we all got used to playing online. We all got really good at online tools. And online tools kind of upped their game because finally everyone's using them. People are giving feedback. They have more demands. It was really just like an online community grew. But now the need for that online community is decreasing. And as listener Chris Kimball called it on our Discord earlier this year, hybrid game groups are going to be the new thing that defines gaming this year. So we're going to be talking about how to host online players at a home game, how to use online tools at a home game, how to bring the online experience to your meat space gaming group. To help us talk about that, we've got my friend and co-worker, Mr. Will Attar. Hi, Will.
Hi, Ryan.
Will, you're on the podcast.
I know. It's great.
This podcast.
This one. It's happened.
Well, it's done now. You can go. Thank you. It's official. You can put it on your... No, Will. Not Will. Oh, he took his headphones off. He really committed to this bit. He might be gone.
Oh, no, I'm good. I'm good.
Will, you want to give people a little insight into who you are and why you are qualified to talk about this subject?
Sure. So, by day, I'm an animator at an animation studio in Montreal called Laughing Dragon Studios.
I've heard good things.
With you, yes, that's what we do. And then by night, I do freelance video work, but I also GM. Before the pandemic, I think I was GMing 4 games at once and playing in 1 or 2. And then the pandemic started, and that shifted wildly. So, I had to come up with new solutions, and that's what I do. So I've always been really techie. I've always been really into video, audio, and kind of making things more of a performance. And I do that when I GM.
Also joining us, No Direction's own Randall Meyer. Hi, Randall.
Hey, how's it going?
It's good. Now, Randall, you actually reached out to us because you heard that Param and I had talked about covering this topic. So in a previous episode, we talked about having this topic as a future episode. The future is now. And you were like, hey, when you have that topic, can I be involved in the conversation? I have things to say. So like Will, why don't you remind people who you are and what makes you qualified for this?
So I am Randall. I do write for No Direction, but I also do weird things like write Discord bots. And Discord bots that are made for gaming make for fun. There are many of them out there. Mine isn't like the only one. It's just got a different take on it. And that is one big way that you can interact online, but also there are ways to link that with your other home style gaming. And that's why I wanted to talk about it. Plus there's some other neat things I've seen that I've shared with you that we will talk about.
I am looking forward to talking about those things. And we're also going to be talking about Societas, I'm sure, in a lot of ways. That's one of the bots you're talking about is how you GM our play-by-post on Discord, which honestly, you have spoiled me for my first real play-by-post experience by having a robot co-GM with you.
That's good. I like that.
It's kind of ridiculous having those toys. Like, this is beyond normal.
I've heard tell of this bot, and I am super jealous and have 1,000 questions about it.
I would be happy to answer all of them. I'd be happy to have you in a game on one, so we can sort that out later.
Yeah, we'll talk.
And Param, what's your experience with hybrid gaming?
Okay, so when you live in Appalachia, it's sometimes not easy to all be here when the mountain turns into sheer ice or other things happen. Also, because I have a family member that games with me and they're disabled, it makes for sometimes they can attend via staying, in the computer chair, but couldn't, especially when we were doing games at the game store. That involves leaving the house and lots of equipment travel and stuff, and sometimes they just weren't up for it. And beyond that, there's always the classic, we've gamed together in this campaign for 2 years, but oh no, Jake has to move across the nation. How does Jake continue to game with us? Well, if you set up a virtual way to dial into your home table and you get good enough at it, it means you can add players from just about anywhere. I mean, I've even had guest players that's just like, we're playing a one-off, and sure, this one-off society game, I'm going to bring in somebody from California. We got 3 seats from Meat Space and 1 person that we're going to play this with. And you, especially with the virtual table guests, they also don't take up actual seats, so you don't have to buy more furniture, and it gets a little less crowded in the game room. Even though, you know, dedicated game space is something not everybody has, it is always nice to not have too many people in the building physically.
It's kind of blows my mind that you've got that cool game space, and like you can bring your online friends into it. Like the only way I've ever experienced that game space is virtually.
Yeah, it's a great space, and I love it. And by being able to run games with anybody, I get to share it with people that would never get the chance to come in here and game with us.
Boy, there's so many places we could begin with this. I guess we should talk about virtual tabletops first.
I think the first thing you need to talk about is how you're going to get them in there to begin with. Like the tables and all that stuff. That's after you've got a virtual person. You still need your real people to be able to the most basic form of interaction in a role-playing game, being able to hear and speak to them, and that is a non-trivial problem to solve. Like, you could like throw an iPad in the corner, but all of a sudden the person at the end of the table, they can't hear them. iPads don't great speakers. That's not a great way of doing it. And I'm going to tell you, because over the past, I mean, I've been doing this stuff since before No Direction, bringing in virtual people to my games. I've done all the mistakes. I don't know. I mean, there might be some mistakes I haven't done yet, but I will, because I keep changing this format and keep experimenting and keep trying to tune it in so that it has that everybody's having as good a time as possible. And one of the hardest things to get right is just basically being able to talk to somebody clearly and have them able to talk to you. And so to do that, you're really starting to think about, you know, podcast production helps. Like if experience with podcasts, you need microphones and speakers, and you need microphones and speakers that play well together with software that is not going to make an endless echo when the microphone picks up said speakers that is broadcasting in the room. And thankfully that's gotten a lot better over the years with things like Discord, and even Skype's not terrible. I guess it's Teams now. We don't use
Skype
it.
Was a household name.
Yeah. So Zoom, of course, but you know, it's almost statistically it's Discord. You're all using Discord. Like statistically, 99 point blah 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 blah. Roll20 people are using Discord. So Discord's really good at that, and also most of the devices that you're going to use to set up for this are going to also be good for that. When I'm talking about an iPad or a spare phone or something along those lines.
We're talking about a lot of things, Pam. So why don't we center in on one of them? Should we talk about microphones or software first?
The first thing is just letting them hear you. So they connect to Discord. You connect the game room to Discord on your Discord account. How do you hear them? You need a microphone. A microphone near the center of the table or above the table. Sometimes I use right now is what I do. I use a boom arm to bring a microphone above the table, and you want an omnidirectional microphone for this so that it hears all around the room. You're not trying to dial in studio quality. You just want them to be able to hear well enough everybody in the room, and the best way to do that is to get a omnidirectional microphone hooked up to your device of choice. And you can get a decent omnidirectional mic that you can hook up to just about anything, depending on what you're going for, you know, like $30-$50, somewhere in that range, if you're just searching for something that'll do passable quality. And then if you want something to mount it on your table or over your table, consider a boomstick, like a $20 boomstick or microphone stand, or even like a clamp arm microphone device that you can hook to one side of the table and just bring it up over everybody. There's
Well,
all kinds of options. I once clipped one of these lights. I clipped an iPad to this light behind me, and a microphone attached to it, and that's how I set it up one day in a hurry when
the
I
light
didn't
was
know they were.
off.
No. I the wrought iron fixture above it. I just got one of the pressure clamps and just clamped that right in there. Put a boom on a short boom on that. I have an iPad clamp that I use for filming. I clamped the iPad up there so that they could look down on the table in the group and see us. And the microphone was hooked up to that, and that's how we gamed. And I had to do it that way because I didn't know they were going to be virtual until about half an hour before the game. So I didn't have it all set up, ready to go. This is also something you need to do a little bit of planning. Like, don't try to do it last minute unless you already have a setup in place, because it takes some thinking, and it's kind of a miserable experience for everybody involved if you don't do if you don't take the little bit of effort to make it a quality experience.
No, Will,
Doing a test run also is kind of key.
Absolutely, yeah. And you can do a lot of the test runs yourself or with one other person.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, Will, I know you've also got a lot of, I know we were talking about animation earlier, but you've got a lot of physical space filming and film production experience.
Yeah.
Any tips, anything to build off of what Perrin was saying?
It's a tricky thing because there's a lot of ways you could go about this. If you got the kind of setup at home where you're able to use a digital tabletop that all players have access to already. So my home setup is I have a gaming table with a TV built into it. That works great for me. I have a player who just moved during the pandemic. So I'm in that situation where one of my players just moved 9 hours away. But he'll still be able to see everything everyone else sees because all he has to do is open up a browser and there we are. But that connection of I want to see his face, I want to hear his voice is still a huge challenge, because how do we do that so everyone can hear him without him then hearing himself?
So
incredible challenge.
My solution for that is to, again, a tablet is the best option here. Like a cheap old, you can just to get a Kindle from Amazon for like a Kindle 10-inch, like for under $100 to be your dedicated one. Then get one of those clamp arms I just told you about, and just like put him at the end of the table so that his face or her, I'm saying his because I did this for my friend Chad Webb most recently. So I put Chad's face at the end of the table on this clamp. So that literally one of the seats, and because it's an iPad, it's about the size of a face. It's just like person, framed person. That is a very skinny, wiggly arm. And that was what they did. And then I hooked it up to a Bluetooth speaker that was in the center of the table underneath the game table. Like I have one of those lifted play areas for my game table. And I slide the Bluetooth speaker underneath that, and so that it's in the center everywhere. I also hook up to the Bluetooth speaker as well, so that I can do like sound effects from Sirenscape and stuff, and it comes from the game table. It's wonderful.
And this is a big thing also. Like you can go in a wide range of production value when you're doing this kind of a setup, because not everyone's going to want to invest necessarily in a boom mic and an articulated arm with a clamp, which is fine. Right. You don't need that. It's just so much better, obviously, but you don't need it. You can get away with just like put a laptop at the edge of the table and let them see. But then you always have to, like, that gets you the person, that gets you the face. But it doesn't necessarily get you the visuals. And my games are typically heavy on the visuals because that's just the kind of industry I'm in. That's the type of person I am. I know a lot of people are very theater of the mind, and some people are still very pen and paper, grid paper. But you have to think about your table setup and like, okay, are you hanging a webcam over the battle mat? Are you using a digital map and everyone has laptops? Or are you using a TV? What is your setup? And these are all things you really, really have to think about.
Especially because a lot of webcams, a lot of camera equipment was scarce during the pandemic. And I don't know if that's regulated now, or if people are just going to have to accept that they've got to use whatever equipment they've got lying around.
Prices
bouncing
have
back
come down. It's not all the way like it used to be pre-pandemic when you could pick up a C920 for $50, but at least it's not literally $500 for what should be a $50 webcam. I like you can do the Roll20 thing, and that's a great way to do it, or the the digital game table thing if you want that. Like Will has set up, that's a fantastic option. I went with a physical camera literally above the game table pointed down at it so that we used the actual minis and stuff. And I signed that in as a second Discord user so that the person on the other end of the line could switch between all of us cam and table cam.
And in terms of camera scarcity, there are options now to allow your smartphone, which I think 99% of people have at this point in 2021.
Right.
You can use your camera's smartphone as the webcam, your smartphone's camera as a webcam, and just, put that over or hold that when it's time. It's another easy solution, and there's softwares for iOS and Android to kind of connect that to your computer.
Yeah. And also, if you're willing to put like if you're willing to set up a dedicated device for this purpose, even like a travel one, your old cell phone is a great device to dedicate to a project like this. That one that you aren't using anymore and runs like crap, and you paid it off years ago and it's sitting in a drawer collecting dust. That thing can turn into, just download the right apps, and that's just the dedicated remote person box. You have all the software and stuff set up with it. Throw a cheap $15 Mac from Amazon on it, and that's it. That's all you need, and you can set it up at the end of the game table wherever you're going. And if you want to do something like that, I do recommend having a pre-set up solution that you can dedicate, because you don't want to be redoing all this every single time you're doing a table.
There's also, we don't want to overlook that there are some lesser techie, somewhat cheaper options. They're not going to be as quality when you come to the animation or the video or the seeing everyone around. But I've done with my personal group at home before the pandemic, before I moved, we played in my garage, and I had it set up with a projector and speakers and stuff like that with my table. But occasionally we'd have someone out or someone else join. And if you're in a city where you've got great cell signal, a lot of cell phone plans these days it's all about the data. So they give you unlimited talk. So you can just set a phone in the corner on speaker mode. So we don't, if you're trying to do this and you don't have all the tech and you don't have all the knowledge and options, keep in mind that you can look for your low tech options too.
Yeah. It's one of those things where it really comes down to budget, amount of effort you're willing to put in, and everyone has their minimum tolerance of quality.
Right.
That's it.
Yeah. I think it's important that you have a speakerphone's a great way of doing this too, if it's near everybody and you're in a small space. But like, they need to be able to understand people, or it's going to become a chorus of what? Say that again, huh?
Yeah, I've been there. I also find that you can't underestimate the value of seeing someone's face. I've played games online where we don't have our webcams running, and I find that people are more detached from the game when you can't see their faces, you're not looking at them in the eyes. Talking with hands as a GM, like as you're trying to describe something, is a great tool, and people like latch onto it for some reason.
You can't pull a Costello and stand around and do the standing up GM thing if they can't see that you're standing.
It's just like a leg up kind of thing. This is the Costello GM pose.
The power pose.
I like it. It's like, honestly, I do like every time I get to see Ryan GM.
He was one of my first GMs. It's great.
Well,
I like his action figure setup now also.
Thank you.
Action.
Oh, wait. Or do you mean the way I bring my Vitruvian hacks to the table to illustrate what my characters are doing?
Yeah, the way you bring your action figure to the table. So you're like, he is now leaning like this.
Oh man.
So yeah, go.
So speaking of people being able to see faces and not being able to let us see your faces, you can participate in every episode of No Direction live in front of our Twitch audience. If you are at twitch.tv/No Direction, you can live chat during the show and ask us questions to us and our guests. We periodically search for those questions and bring them into the chat and answer them for you. So make sure that you type in those questions that you have for us about virtual gaming tables, our guests, or anything else.
So I think we're ready to move on to virtual gaming tables, which means
Virtual
we have to
gaming
start
tables.
with a little, just what do you call it? The declaration when there's a conflict of interest. Full disclosure. That's what I was looking for. Full disclosure. We have a partnership. There we go. That was close. Full disclosure, we have a partnership with Roll20 when it comes to our actual play Adventurous. They provided us with materials for Adventurous, and they are listed as a sponsor for that. That is the extent of that partnership. So we will be talking about different virtual tabletop options here.
Mm-hmm.
We will attempt to be unbiased, but know that there is a pre-existing relationship that may be biasing us in some directions.
Right. Yeah. So, like right now, what are the most popular options? There's Roll20, who we're partnered with. They're my favorite, honestly, just because I've used them for so long and it's super easy. And right now, I'm hearing great things about Foundry. A lot of people seem to really love Foundry. I know a few people are still loving D20 Pro. I keep hearing good things about D20 Pro. What other options are there out there that people are using?
I use
Foundry.
Astral
People
Tabletop.
just keep talking about Foundry.
I could talk to you about Foundry forever.
Foundry seems to be like the new hotness, honestly, and I can see why. You go there and you see some of the features they've got. It's nice.
It is so nice. I was using Roll20 for years. I loved it. I had the premium membership and everything. I was playing with all the lighting and putting in macros for effects, and I went all out with my Roll20. And my players loved it too, and they were getting into it, and it was nice to be able to move characters from game to game to game. And honestly, it was the best option forever. And then Foundry.
Yeah.
I mean, Foundry.
To give Roll20 its due on this discussion, you like the development of click this link and join my game was massive, because before that you either had purchase software for every player at your table, like Fantasy Grounds, which is still actively used and supported. They've got new versions. I hear great things about it too. But you have to buy copies for all your players and the GM, and like that's the same way with D20 Pro. It's a purchased piece of software, or you had to use free software like WebRPG is like the first one I got involved with. It no longer exists, and it may be the oldest. And like there's Map Tools was another famous one that got used a lot. And this like really, really like put together by like geeky coders and like on their home times free software that was frustrating to use sometimes, and trying to walk a non-techie person through setting it up was also not a great time. And so being able to just click this link, join the game, no requirements other than that, is absolutely massive. And Foundry's got that option too.
I find that with Roll20, I had quite a learning curve at the start, trying to figure out like how to associate tokens to players properly. I wasn't a fan of the integrated video and mics, so we moved over to Discord. Trying to find a good way to get good audio in there. I found a way to play Sirenscape through Discord, so that was nice. And
how did you do that?
I can go into great detail about that. But it was always like, this is the best option, but I'm frustrated a lot still. And it might be because in terms of my life as a tabletop gamer, and especially a role player, is way shorter than yours. I only got into Pathfinder, I don't know, Ryan, when, like 2013, 2014?
Yeah, so I mean, you're coming up on your 10th anniversary. You're not the wet
I
behind the
guess.
ears novice anymore.
But I mean, Roll20 was a thing when I started. It was already an established thing. So I didn't have like a there was worse to compare to, you know? So I just came into it and I'm like, oh man, this is not nearly as smooth. You know, they had an iPad app and I never got it to work. Um, and it was just, I just found that like I love it, but it was frustrating. But it's so good, but I just want to strangle it sometimes. Um, and because of that, me and one of my players, what we would do is always look at alternatives. So we checked out Fantasy Grounds, and we're like, ooh, everybody has to pay $60, and we don't really know how well it works, but it might integrate with Paizo's website. We'll think about it. You know, we checked out a few other ones. I never saw Astral, so I'm glad you told me about that tonight. But I've already moved on to Foundry. I forget who pointed me towards Foundry. It may have been Reddit. It may have been the Pathfinder Facebook group. But wowee, I've fallen in love all over again. It is, as someone who likes to do high production GMing, it is such a dream come true. I had gotten what was called the VTT Enhancement Suite, which is a browser extension you could get for Chrome and Firefox, which makes Roll20 a little better, gives you a lot more tools, such as video maps. That's something that the VTT Enhancement Suite can give you. This was already built in to Foundry. I always found it frustrating if I had a map with columns that my columns would just be blacked out if I put walls around them. You know, I couldn't see the columns, but also have them block sight. Foundry takes care of that by having like 5 different types of walls, including terrain walls that only blocks after it goes through the second line. You know, animated lights and sounds triggered by proximity and location.
Ooh, that's cool.
That is cool. um, and just doors, just having doors that players could click and find out if they're open or locked, stuff like that. Like it's just, it makes it a little more video gamey, and I find that the resistance that people will have is it gets rid of some of the theater of the mind. But for me and my players, it is so nice and it's so easy to work with in GM. It's so easy to create with it. It's so easy to set up and just go. The only hurdle I think is installing it, which sounds weird, but you need to host it somewhere, whether it's locally on your machine or whether you're a tech guy that has a server up somewhere, or instead of just paying the $50 one-time fee for the game, and it's $50 for just the GM, you could pay them monthly for a hosting that they take care of.
What is it
And
monthly?
I don't know, because my buddy has a server, so we just threw it up there.
Fair enough.
And we have our own private domain. We have a domain that you just go to that domain and then you're in the game. And it's so easy. It's so beautiful.
All right, I
It
want to
has
focus on
Starfinder, Pathfinder, Pathfinder 2,
Yeah.
D&D 5e, like all of it.
So I want to focus on what you said about it being easy for a GM to just kind of get up and go with it, because you know my GMing style. I don't
It
prep.
scares me.
I don't even want to have my maps preloaded. I just want to be able to start the game and roll with everything.
Yeah,
How
you
well
frighten me.
does Foundry support? Yes, fine, but how well does Foundry support my GMing style?
I think I would support it pretty well. So it has some built-in map making tools, but it also has. Okay, this is the coolest thing about Foundry for me. It's user created community. Its user content community is outstanding. There are hundreds of mods and dozens of content packs created by the community. So there are like these guys who are just all they do is make maps, and they're like, well, we want people to use our maps. So using Foundry, you can download our map assets and just scroll through and find the one that fits you and load up a map. Or you could just find assets. I forget what they call them in Foundry because I don't use it as my map making tool. But you can just put it together yourself with pieces and walls and all that kind of stuff really, really, really quickly. For maps, I generally use Incarnate, which I find is really quick and really nice.
Karen, were you talking about Incarnate recently?
I've talked to you about it before under different things. I don't really use it as my map, but I use Photoshop for my maps because I have it and I know how to use it, and I don't want to learn something else.
Incarnate is really great if you have zero artistic skill.
Ooh,
That is, yeah,
Mhm.
that's where it comes in handy. The other one I use is actually on Steam, and it is called Dungeon Painter. They have a free browser version that you can use
Ah.
as a demo. But what's nice about Dungeon Painter is it uses the Steam Workshop. So I find it's very hard to do homebrew sci-fi maps for Starfinder, just because everything out there for tabletop RPG is fantasy themed.
Mhm.
Luckily,
Another
sorry.
and sorry, the pause. I didn't mean to talk over you.
It's fine. So I was just saying, it was just like there's people who have created Star Wars packs, Cyberpunk packs, all these packs in the Steam Workshop. I could download them in Steam, take those assets out of Steam, and then put them into Incarnate and then cheat.
Yeah.
And that works.
Now we're talking another option for your software to be running on your virtual table is Tabletop Simulator. If you install Tabletop Simulator and then throw the camera above it and then zoom down, you have access. It also has an incredible wealth of user-created map assets and 3D models and stuff. And then it also has the advantage that you can then like control the camera as the GM and like, start to actually do a little bit of Hollywooding while you're live GMing. If you wanted to like zoom in and focus on the dragon and then zoom way out above the table so that you can see the tactical action.
That's cool.
But all of these options still need the virtual table. Like we're talking about the software running on it, but we need or else we might as well be playing online. This is just how you play an online game so far. We still have.
Well, this is how I've been playing offline also.
Right.
Pre-pandemic, I was doing this in person. So, well,
Right.
not Foundry because I found it during this, but I mean, before I had the TV and the table, we were all using iPads and laptops.
So around the table with holding iPads and laptops.
Yeah, so instead of having pen and paper character sheets, reason one, our handwriting's all over me and my players. Handwriting sucks. And erasing and writing and erasing and writing were just ruining the paper. And also, years ago, I didn't own a printer. So we just all had laptops and or tablets. And we had those and would roll dice. And I would draw battle maps with dry erase, and then we found Roll20, and then suddenly we just did that. And it made integrating a virtual player easier if someone had to miss, but like they couldn't travel, but they still want to be there. Fine, we just Skyped them in, and they would still be there. So we could still have the in-person experience plus the virtual person, and we all had our iPads and laptops.
But virtual tables.
Like physical at a real table, but virtual table. Yeah.
Yeah. So like you've probably seen, if you're listening from home, you've probably seen these. You've got basically a display built into a table, or sometimes you can get like a display that you sit on a table that's designed for this, or sometimes you can just tip your TV on the side, and don't do that. Please don't do that. And just use that.
Why not do that? That's Jeff Chapman ran his game like that. It was just a TV on the side in a box.
Yeah, okay, yeah, in a box. Like, I meant don't just rip it off the wall and slam it down. That would be very bad for the wall and the TV. But basically having a display that you can pull Roll20 or Foundry or whatever software you're choosing, display your map. I mean, people were using PowerPoint before that, before these softwares were commonly available. And really? Letting people just run the games on display your tokens and the monsters and basically all the board elements on the digital screen. Also, one that's really common is to use the screen just for the maps and terrain, or as enhancement for the maps and terrain, and then put physical figures on top of the TV. But that does kind of become complicated with a remote person.
Yeah. So we stopped doing that because of the remote person.
Yeah, I've seen that done well with even with a remote person, but still wanting to use the minis, because if you have minis, you want to use them. Especially in Meat Space, where the GM just also puts all the tokens down and just moves the tokens when they move the physical figure to match to accommodate both people.
Well, for Emerald Spire, we're using a physical map, right? We're not using your virtual tabletop.
We're using a physical. We're using the like. I bought the pack of maps, and that was part of our excitement of playing Emerald Spire, is because I had this like fat map pack of the actual art, and we're like, let's do it. And then I realized I don't know how to do Fog of War and stuff like that on physical maps, because I've done digital for so long.
You want to get go to the scrapbooking section and buy cardboard frilled circles. You can get them by the 100 packs for like $1, and you basically spread it all over your map, and then you just scoot it out the way as they explore, and you're like literally moving a cloud away from to reveal specific areas. It's the best way I've done to do Fog of War in a physical map.
That's smart. I tried paper, like just pieces of paper, and I tried a towel. So those are my 2 ideas.
Bed sheets is buying a black bed sheet is also a common choice if you're using like 3D terrain. That's often done for like people that set up Dwarven Forge. They'll drape a big bed sheet across it and then pull it back as they explore the dungeon.
But that's that Emerald Spire game. We are like strictly doing that without digital assets. I think the only digital thing I had going was I had sound coming out of the Alexa.
Yeah, I remembered that we were using your virtual tabletop, but I remembered wrong. We were definitely
we were at the table, but we're
Yeah.
using the actual battle mats.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And if you have a table with a virtual display, you have the freedom of both, which is super cool to have.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, Randall, you've built a table with this, right?
I built a table. So I was reading one of the chats. I built a table. I had a projector mounted. It was in my garage, so we had open rafters. And we had one of my friends had a projector left over from some project somewhere. Brought it over. We hung it in the rafters, pointed it down, and so that allowed us to project maps onto the table. Which then, like, I'm using Astral Tabletop, so I could do the walls real quick, get Fog of War, and we could move our physical. We would 3D print our minis from Hero Forge, so we would move them around the table, and I could do the Fog of War as they move around just by simulating a token with them. But there's other things you can mix and match, but that's how I use my table. We did have the grid, so I did make sure I had a grid on the table, so it was easy to. We could do a lot of times. I would just project. Here is a forest, or here is a grass plain, and then I would get the map tiles and the map tokens from different sets from different manufacturers, and so I would lay them out on the table to add extra terrain to a projected surface. So that was fun.
That was pretty cool.
So Uncle Lars in chat.
Uncle Lars in the chat.
Yeah, for Fog of War, he suggested just lay out a deck of cards. It would have the same effect as Karen was talking about.
Exactly. Good choice.
A good way of doing it. And they're small enough that you can really kind of nitpick what you reveal and what you don't.
Yeah. That's why I like the small aspects. I tried it with like the sheets, like paper sheets, but like they're in the way. With the small ones, you can just literally take your finger and nudge it to where you need it to be. At the end of the night, it's like there's like at one end of the table, there's a pile of stuff, and it's really easy to just put them back together into a stack or into the deck and then put it in its box. I'm going to steal that. I'm going to do that now.
I like that. The projector is an interesting thing.
You'll probably need more than one deck, though.
I've got cards everywhere in this house. Magic cards, playing cards, cue cards.
Param, are there Pathfinder playing cards?
I don't remember any.
So
I mean,
either.
they've branded everything like shot glasses and all sorts of things from different conventions. I don't remember a deck of normal playing cards.
We have the adventure card game, but I would not want to mess that up with just laying that out on the table.
You could use the Hero decks, but they're a little hard to get anymore. So multiple hero decks just to be Fog of War. That would look awesome.
That's
It
what I was
would,
going.
that-
I was like,
Yeah.
I want something thematic. I don't want just a red
Yeah,
or blue
or you could
bicycle
just get
card back.
you could buy a bunch of tarot decks. Yeah,
I have
you
a
could buy.
Kickstarter idea. Fog of
Ooh.
War cards.
Oh,
Yeah. You can have them themed as like Fog of War or maybe just fog, mist.
Double-sided. You could put something on the other side.
Fire,
Yeah.
Suddenly, you can also double as
Fire,
the floor is
yeah.
lava.
lava.
So speaking of fire, going back, you said you had a projector that you were projecting down?
Yes.
That'd be really cool for like if you have your dry erase battle mat or your drawn battle mat, you could project weather onto it with a projector.
Yes,
You
you
could do
absolutely
fog,
could.
clouds, rain, snow.
Mhm.
Snow was the first time I tried to do an animated map, and it blew everyone's minds because like I was like, all right, you land on this planet, get outside, full blown snowstorm, and I load up the map, and they're like, whoa! And it was really cool to see everyone's faces light up for that. And a projector is a really cool way of doing that hybrid setup
Mhm.
of something techie and then something old school.
It's really fun when you have, like I said, so my table was a flat white, but I used a white pegboard. So I had a 1-inch grid built into the table just because that was the surface. And then I would throw maps and tiles on top of it to make whatever distance, space. I could use two maps, I could use maps and tiles. But like you were talking about with the weather, we used our own physical 3D minis on there. So you would be projecting color or weather on the minis. So you could change the light setup as well. Just the same
That's
way.
really cool.
Projector setups are really awesome. I guess they're no less practical than some of the gadgets I've been yelling at. In fact, that's probably one of the earliest ways to pull this off. Also, don't underestimate the power of a gigantic screen on one end of the game table or the room. Yep. Some of my best fun days of GMing was when we would in college. We would take over one of the conference rooms, throw the battle maps up onto like the giant, the projector wall, and just game around it, moving stuff up there. And also as a GM, it's great to be able to do some of the things we can do online and show images or the stuff Paizo does where they throw up like active maps of the city as you're going around them, on NPCs as you're talking to them. Lots of options there if you want to do it that way, and the remote player will be able to see everything that the in-person people are seeing.
I don't know why I thought this, and it's not necessarily on topic of the hybrid setup, but when you said you have a giant screen on the side, my first thought was renting out a movie theater like people do to play Xbox and stuff, but it's just the game. And you can
oh my gosh!
Such a huge grid, like a 500 by 500 grid on there, and just like go 6 hours.
And a third option here, if you just want to go with faces, or like just set up the laptop in the corner, is just Theater of the Mind. You don't need tables and battle mats and stuff to bring to role play, and that honestly is easier when you bring in a remote person. So you just need to get the sound and audio and a screen that we can see them, and then you can just play the game with them. Like you can do this with all the tech in the world, or with a speakerphone, like Randall was saying.
So the hybrid table I am most likely to play would be a physical table with maps and tokens, miniatures, things like that. Mm-hmm. But I'd probably want a camera pointed at it so that if you're not in the physical space, you have the same experience. So what should I be doing about that camera?
So what you want to do there is you can either do a camera or a cell phone or something that can look down, that has a camera on it. I've done it both ways. And you just literally want to mount it like literally above the table pointing down, or at a high angle zoomed in on the table. This is the easiest way to do it. And it and you want to do that if possible as a second screen that the person can see. If you're using Discord, the easiest way to do this is to spin up a couple of Discord accounts. Like you can make infinite Discord accounts, just sign up with another email. And so you have a Discord account called My Home Game The Table has joined Discord chat, and then it's muted and everything, and all it is just sharing its screen of the table pointed down. And then you have the other Discord chat, which is the normal camera that they see for the player view. That's my recommendation if you're going to do actual tabletop with the toys and bringing somebody in that way.
A lot of sorry, Randall, you could go.
I was just going to say, I actually mentioned to Ryan the other day, and that's one of the reasons I wanted to have this chat was in a discussion with my Sage bot, somebody had asked me how it would work with this thing called Vorpal board.
Sorry,
Vorpal.
a discussion with your Sage bot?
About my Sage bot.
Okay.
What are you teaching this thing?
I talk to it. It talks back. There's a learning
It patches
curve.
into AI Dungeon.
All AI has to start somewhere. But no,
Nope.
somebody had joined my Discord and was asking me about it, and they asked how it would work with a thing they just bought called Vorpal board. It's vorpalboard.com if you want to go look at it. It's pretty neat. I don't have it. I don't have any link to them, but I think I'm going to buy one. I got to talk to my wife and see if I can squeeze some extra dollars into my gaming budget this month. But it is essentially what we've been talking about with using your cell phone as a camera. They have one where they send you basically the mount for your phone, and you hook up this camera software and you use their software to basically project whatever it take your board game, your maps, your dungeon, whatever you map through their system. And then they have some built-in features for like, okay, we're done with the session, click freeze, it'll save your image so you know where you were last time. They've got an expanded version where they send you a light box, and that light box allows you to put in cards. So if you're playing a board game that has cards or little tokens or chits, the box is ideal lighting to take pictures of them, import them, so that it helps you with the importing of the options and features and things, tokens for your game. It's something that looks really neat. I want to check it out because I want to see how well it works. And I think it's something I could get some other my family members that aren't role players, but might like board games or card games. So it's an option out there that, like what Ryan was saying, for using your phone. It's pretty neat. It's fairly cheap. Yeah, it's something that I think people should be know about, at least. Check it out, learn about how it works, and then you can draw your own conclusions.
Yeah, the UI kind of looks like if you're playing Roll20, but instead of the virtual mat, it's a camera pointed at your game table. And so if players want to actually click on somewhere and do a ping like you would on Roll20, you would do that. You're just doing it on a picture of the actual game. So if it's like, what is this thing, the camera's obscured or whatever, and then you have to go into more information, or players can be like, I think this treasure chest is a mimic, so let's just walk around this way, and then you can draw the path you want to do, and it's everything is just like you're doing the virtual table, but it's a physical table.
And I tell you, one of the hardest things to do when you're going from playing like we normally do with boards and maps and stuff to doing podcasts of actual plays is learning to not say that one, because our audience will not know what that one is.
So what I want to say before is that the camera setup, a lot of cameras, GoPros, a lot of webcams, you could even like tripod mounts for cell phones, like little ones. They all have a universal screw and a universal threading. And we were talking about getting an articulated arm for shotgun mics or boom mics before to go over, but the same arm will have the screw for that threading for the camera. So you could just get that same thing, put it on your camera, and that's how you could get that above shot of your board. So it's a relatively cheap and simple setup to get a camera to go right over your table.
Yeah, we're talking the setup. We're really talking, you could, if I was going from nothing to setting up something that would be wonderful to play with as a virtual player, I would need maybe $100
max. Yeah.
Because all these gadgets we're talking about are like a $10 gadget, a $30 mount. Here's a $20 microphone. And the two most important things, though, I think, if you're going to do anything, is get a speaker that is loud enough that everybody can hear them talk, hooked up to whatever it is, and a decent omnidirectional microphone so they can hear everybody. That's the most important part of this. And you can do that for under $50, and everything else beyond that point is gravy.
Vorpal board looks like what my dream setup is right now. I'm just looking.
I'm kind of been falling in love with this Vorpal board thing. It's like it must be the answer to
Well,
a lot of our problems.
so with my TV setup, now that I have it in the table finally, my dream has because I always still play with tokens because I love the tokens. I use the Hero Forge tokens all the time. Um, my dream setup has always been like a communication link between the two. So if someone moves the token on the table, then the digital token would then follow. That would be my dream come true. It'd be beautiful because then the in-person players still have that tactile ability to play, and they also have their art that they made. And any remote players still have an idea of what's going on without having the okay, I move it, all right, I'm going to move it here too. Like, why would you do it twice? It seems redundant and annoying. I think I want to look at Vorpal more because it feels like it's really close to that beautiful dream setup.
Oh man, I'm gonna check this out. You could play Warhammer with this too, which is of interest to a lot of people wanting to play. You're talking about people angry they can't play online right now. The physical war gamers, they can't get anywhere near their normal experience online. There's role-playing, there's so much. Us RPGers, we're super lucky. We've got dedicated software for pulling this off, and we can get within a really close approximation of doing it in person at our homes now for very little money. When you're trying to move around, like when you have an entire hobby based on like carving rocks into cities and moving around hundreds of lead figures you hand painted, it doesn't become the same when it's like little JPEGs of horses. And this would let them use it.
Yeah, Vorpal board says it's got two different packages, the RPG package and the board game package. So I imagine a war gamer would prefer to do the board game package, but I actually don't know exactly what the differences are.
The board game package essentially just comes with the box that is the light box for scanning in your cards and your tokens and things like that. Oh, okay. So I don't know how essential that would be for a war gamer. Well, yeah, like I said, when this was brought to my attention, I honestly wanted to buy it right then. I kind of had a slight hope of being able to fit this in the budget and have played with it before tonight to give you some examples. But no, it wasn't. I wasn't ready to buy it just yet. But like, I would really like to use this and set up a HeroScape with some people.
HeroScape.
I haven't played that in a very long time. I miss it.
So there's something else.
Yeah, HeroScape's wonderful. HeroQuest.
Yes. Well. Oh, I think I backed that actually. I should be getting that one of these days.
Something else you shared with me, Randall, that I thought was super cool was pixel dice.
Yes. So pixels-dice.com. Is that right? It's pixels plural -dice.com. So it is they're custom made dice with little digital coils in them. They light up, and you can program how they light up. You can set their color, you can set the pattern, you can you just Bluetooth pair them to your phone, you configure them, you can have different profiles, so you can make 3-4 profiles, put them all together, and change them on the roll, have multiple dice. They're pretty sweet.
Well, don't they also record it and send your dice results to virtual tabletops?
So they are in talks with like Roll20 and Foundry and others, so that yes, once you have, I don't know, I think right now you would have to use a Chrome extension to do Roll20. I don't know how it works. I don't remember how they initially set it up.
Yeah,
but
they do have an but they do have an app that you can remote see the results.
Yeah, they have an app on the phone. You configure it, the results will come in. You can even have your phone play, you rolled a 20. So you can actually do audio results as well. They're really
I saw
nice.
these I saw them at their booth at the last physical Gen Con I was at, which is the last physical Gen Con there was, and hopefully not the last physical Gen Con there ever will be. And it was amazing. I want them so badly.
Their Kickstarter is coming out in a month, I think.
Yeah, I've got the video pulled up on stream for everybody to look at, and it just looks wonderful.
Yeah,
because this is a big thing for me. One of the I need the tactile feel of actually rolling my dice. I don't want any virtual dice rollers. I get why some GMs shy away from that, because you either need a dedicated camera or a lot of trust in the player.
Right.
But
I just do the trust in the player option. I don't want to play with people I can't trust. If I catch you cheating at the table, it's the last time you play at my table.
And with something like this, what's really neat for people like me is if they are using a Chrome extension to connect their dice to Roll20, I could use that interface theoretically to build an interface for Discord, which means you could then use these dice through an interface to Discord to an interface to my bot. I don't know how practical that would be.
You
But I'm
talk to the
pretty sure I
robot,
could
the
pull it
robot
off.
talks to your dice.
Yes.
Randall, it's like you showed up today with the intention of making me poor, because these dice are beautiful.
Oh.
Vorpal is beautiful. I want to, like, everything I've heard about your bot, I just want to get with it. It's just
you haven't
like...
Randall's bot, when you want to talk as a character, it pops up a comic bubble with the
I know,
text and the
that's
character's
so
picture.
cool.
It's wonderful.
So cool.
Sorry.
And these dice are incredible. And, like, yeah, the idea that you could connect it in all these ways. And Ryan, you're 100% right. Like, playing with physical dice, there is no substitute for.
Yeah.
My players know me as the GM that kills, because these hands are magic with dice. I have I've rolled 6 natural 20s in a game, and just, like, you know, critting players out. And it's not like I'm not cheating. I don't use a GM screen. Everything I do is open. It's there for all to see. I want them to be afraid. And when I go to digital dice, that power is gone. So I believe in the tactile dice so much.
You know what?
Well, sorry.
What?
I've actually rolled these. Some of the prototypes of these, I've actually handled them, and they're substantial, and it feels just like it doesn't feel like they're. I've seen some digital dice before that were like hollow and clinky. These feel like you're just rolling a really nice dense dice, almost like you're rolling a stone dice.
That's what I want.
I actually I went through their entire site and watched all their videos. They are they did the weights on them. They're about a third heavier than standard dice that we use, and they're closer to standard dice than they are to the stone dice now. They've increased or improved them since you experimented with them.
Yeah,
but
they got a picture with 5 different scales.
Yeah,
and theirs is slightly heavier than resin, slightly halfway point between resin and the gemstone die. So it's still going to be a familiar feel. Yeah, for people rolling
a little chunkier than your average Chess X D20.
Yeah, but about a third the weight of a metal die.
Yeah. Right. The only problem is it's going to be like, oh, I forgot to charge my dice this morning.
They have pretty good timeline on them, but yes, you should probably be charging them every day. I wanted to make a joke about Will and your dice rolling powers. So this is a slight tangent, but many years ago, some of us played D&D minis. And I had a lot of downtime between scenarios and between matches and tournaments, and I learned how to roll 20-sided dice reliably.
Oh,
so, I could maybe 3 out of 5 times I could call a D20.
That's amazing.
So. Yeah,
I haven't been doing that because if it doesn't go the right way, I swap sets, and if that doesn't start going the right way, instead of rolling them, I start throwing them, and that usually gets them working for me. So it's all black magic and superstition.
Yeah, I don't believe in luck with dice at all, and my players know this, but basically they tell me when to switch dice. So and I have a few sets they don't let me use anymore.
Yeah, I've done extensive over the years from coding. I've done extensive tests and experiments on randomization, and you can ask Ryan. Sayas has a terrible time with Sage dice, but it's a Ryan thing. I don't know why. I think it's all of us. You know, I don't know.
My average is single digit on Sage.
Wow,
it's crazy. But you've got some of the good ones lately. You've been getting
somebody's got to hold down
one.
And
you were telling me to
curve.
re-roll it because some kind of picture display came up wrong. And it's like, no, Randall, I rolled a 17 and I got max damage, and I am keeping that.
that was a total screw up on my part. The next version
That's
of
why
Sage,
I was keeping it.
Yes, no. The version of Sage I'm about to release, I reworked the commands to make more sense for users and not for me. And I forgot that. So when I renamed an NPC incorrectly and I renamed Sayas.
And I didn't even notice that I had the wrong name on it because, the art pops up. It's like, that's me.
Yep.
And
how do you see? Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Will.
I was just going to say, just to cap this off, that I'm not superstitious with anything in my life. I no weird beliefs or anything. But when it comes to dice, Param, I don't know how you don't believe in luck. I am superstitious with the dice. It's like paranoid delusions.
No. I just use whatever random dice are available. I don't mind when people borrow them. I know, we got one player, Pat, one of my regular players, has been with my group for 13 years. He has one set of glass dice that he bought when D&D came out and filled it with crayon, and he has to refill that crayon every so often. And that's the only dice he ever uses. And nobody's allowed to touch them.
They had glass dice then? What, am I picturing it wrong? It feels like glass dice would be super fancy.
This was super fancy.
Okay.
This was meant to be you hold this thing up and it looks like an artifact. It's old, it's worn, it's got weird edges. It's like I said, it's filled with crayon. Yeah. So
like an artifact.
Yeah. You fill the artifacts with crayons, you melt them down, and he refuses to use anything else. And nobody ever touches those dice. They have a dedicated pouch. I understand that a lot of people find a lot of joy in having luck with dice, but statistics, whatever. Just give me a hunk of plastic as long as it's not weighted.
Randall, how do you see using Sage in a virtual hybrid situation?
So it really comes down to the same that we've been talking about before Sage is a Discord bot, so you've got to have Discord running. But with my game group, we use Astral Tabletop for the maps. And they even have some of their stats now in the character spots there. But I still keep Discord up because it's a lot easier to drop an image for them. Hey, this is what this person looks like. Hey, here's plus when somebody says, hey, what's the duration on Bless? What's the distance on Magic Missile? I can still run the quick commands in Sage, pull the spell up with just a couple of key taps. And so it's just another thing that I've got on my screen. So if you're in an environment where you've got people remote playing with your local, then they can have it all on their screen as well. If you're running it, the majority of the people local and they don't have screens with them, that's where the projector comes in, or the TV on the wall comes in. There's so many ways to, Chromecast or, AirPlay or whatever else to a TV that you could even just have Discord on a TV screen next to the table, on the wall, or at the extra iPad that we've been talking about. And that way you've got the quick and easy there. So with that extra there, everyone has the ability to see it. And then with Sage, it's just a matter of what extras do you want? Do you want the dice from it so that everyone's rolling the same dice? Do you want, the NPC so that everyone sees the NPCs as you talk? It really just comes down to which aspect of it you want, but I don't see it being different than what we're already talking about.
And with LCDs as cheap as they are right now, you can get giant flat panels for a couple of $100 anymore. Even my gaming group is talking about throwing a TV on the wall just so that we can do just so the GM can use it for presentations and stuff. And that, you're right, that's the perfect thing to hook up for the face cam or the Discord. Also, we kind of got around the digital table part. We kind of didn't talk about that super much on how you get one. One of the options is just buy a cheap TV. If you don't want to drill a hole in your table, you can just build it with a box with lots of ventilation. Lots of ventilation is important. There's a reason your TV has vents. You don't want it to overheat. Put a plexiglass top on it, and ta-da, you have a virtual gaming table.
You want to have a little exit for the ports also in power.
Yeah, but they'll find out if they don't have that exit real quick when they try to use it.
Yep. So my TV that I use was about $200. I got it out of Walmart. It's 42 inches, and I had it just sitting on top of the table for the longest time before. So I went from dry erase mats to TV sitting just flat on top of the table, no box or anything, to eventually putting it sunk into the table. And it was just like progression over several years. So yeah, you can. It seems like a crazy high end thing to have a screen as a table. It's not.
It's
not
nothing anymore.
nothing.
And yeah, and also you don't have to get the plexiglass if you don't mind scratches on your screen. This thing's gonna have, it's for minis and stuff. How much we spill Dorito dust on everything.
My plexiglass was more expensive than my TV.
Really? Okay,
Yeah.
if you want to get cheap plexiglass, BCW poster top loaders. It is a gigantic thing the size of a movie poster that is designed to slide posters into to protect them, but get the cheap end so that it's just the plastic ones and not the big expensive. I got this thing graded ones, and it's like a few bucks each, and that will cover a TV. And if it gets too scratched up, because this isn't plexiglass, it's just really decent plastic. If it gets scratched up, just toss it out and buy another $5 one.
That makes a
How
lot
do you
more
slide
sense.
the TV into it?
You set it up on
You
its
take the
side and then you
back
stand
off.
the table up. Hey, my table was hung from the ceiling and was lowered down on pulleys.
Right.
So, no, back to the using Sage or things like Sage in the hybrid zone. One of the other nice things, especially if you're working in Discord and we're using Sage, like right now we're using Zoom to do this call. A lot of people are using Zoom to do their stuff. You can do your voice, audio, video chats in Discord directly, which is nice. So it's one less thing you've got running. But for like Societas, we have set up the in-character channel. We have the out-of-character for planning and whatnot. It's just, sometimes we use, sometimes we don't. We've got the public channel for everyone to just kind of BS. I've got a behind the screen channel that the players cannot see, so that I can track notes. When players roll secret dice, that's where the dice result goes, so that I get it all collected up and the players don't know what they actually rolled. I usually, not for Societies, but my other games, I'll give my players a channel that's not GM friendly, so that they can talk and plan without me seeing it, so I can be surprised as well. But I've seen some groups, they will give you a channel per character, so that instead of private messaging or direct messaging the player, you can drop notes or hints or results of things in those private channels. With Sage, if you were to create a private channel per character and turn on dialogue, you could have entire NPC conversations there. So with something like Sage in a hybrid environment, it's fun because you don't have to no longer do the, hey, come with me into the other room. Hey, here's this note. You can do all of your private conversations, multiple NPC conversations simultaneously. So that's one of the benefits of already being in a digital environment and then going to a hybrid style, is you can keep some of that knowledge separate, which is fun. And that's not strictly just something you can do with Sage, but it's something I'm planning on enhancing with Sage.
It also helps avoid those awkward situations where it's one PC got the information from the NPC, the PC goes back to the group, and the rest of the group's like, so what did they say? Even though everyone just heard that conversation.
Yeah.
That's why you go,
like
a character then says everything.
Yeah. It seems like Sage would do really well on Foundry, because Foundry is the modding community is a ton of tools that are very similar, but I feel like not nearly as beautiful or robust as Sage. One tool that came to mind is, so they have a similar chat setup like Roll20, like a sidebar chat in Foundry. And there's a mod you can get where if you want to share information, but it's of a certain language, like it's writing on a wall or something, you could choose what the language is. And if the character doesn't have it, it will show up as runes, or it'll show up
awesome.
as something in the different language. So only players with the language can actually read it. And it's features
Making
like that.
Note for Sage.
I thought you'd like that. So
has this podcast turned into like the feature design rec room for Sage?
Yeah, we're just talking about Sage and how it'll change the future of gaming. So that's why I think, like, if for people who are currently using Foundry or on Roll20 and eventually going to go to Foundry, I think that Sage would be so cool on it, and it would definitely help that whole hybrid gaming thing, because it's like, it just sounds like an amazing GM assistant tool that I would love to have when my players are actually sitting next to me.
Well, okay, we'll chat offline. There's some fun
Yeah.
stuff I've been experimenting with. One of the things
man.
I'm looking at possibly doing is tying into Discord's authentication feature, which means I could have a standalone website so that if you want to go in and configure your PC's name and image and their familiar and their companion and their hireling, instead of doing it through Discord's interface, you could just hit a URL. It would ask you to log in with Discord, and then you would have a real quick and easy interface that everybody's used to on a phone or a website. And there are other tools that are doing things like that. Like I don't want to talk about that because it might. I've got ideas with other groups and other companies and other people that I would like to talk to about a standard API for us to communicate with.
Oh man.
So but yeah, one of the things that is so far down my roadmap that I'm going to go ahead and talk about it because it's so awesome and I just want to see you squirm, is that I know how to, in Sage, if I were to say, here's the current map of the encounter you're on. If you were to react with a down arrow, I could move your token.
Ooh.
So I know how to do that, but the complexity of getting it right and reliable is far down my roadmap because I haven't actually released Sage publicly yet. I'm trying to do that this weekend actually. So it's one of those. It's it's a feature I'm trying. I have it on my roadmap. It's just, having Sage work correctly is great. The second priority would be, adding in right now it does dice, general dice, generic dice. You can do PF2 dice. I'd like to do PF1, Starfinder, other types of, this is what happens when you crit, kind of thing. Just simple mods for dice. I'd like to have multiple games, but yeah, it's that kind of stuff that's where I'm going to Sage, and that Sage eats up so much of my time.
There's a couple of comments from chat I want to call out. So John Bastille says he uses a cheap, thin, clear plastic tablecloth for his table, and he's suggesting that you could have used that to cover your screen, Will. And Uncle Lar is also from Laughing Dragon Studios in Blind Ferret. He says art stores sell large sheets of acetate of different weights, and that could be an option. He uses it on his Cintiq as a screen protector. So yeah, Will, you just got hosed with your super expensive plexiglass.
Well, so the problem is I wanted
need that
something
for my
really
Cintiq.
thick that wouldn't bend when dice and players and the plexi people can still lean on a little. Also, people are rolling with metal dice at my table. So, I needed something heavy and durable.
Do not roll metal dice on the digital screen, people.
Just try and stop me.
Nor roll it on a brand new paper map on a plastic table with a cloth tabletop.
Yeah. No, I got foam riding around the table. I got I put caulking all around the TV so nothing could get through. I was very careful.
Slitter in chat. Oops, sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say it's like a 1/4-inch plexi. That's why it was so expensive. It's pretty thick.
So Sluder in chat is saying that in 10 years, all games will be run by Sage.
Don't tempt me.
Sluder also was complaining about his dice rolls earlier, and that as a player, he rolls absolutely terribly, and as a GM, he always kills. Play casters. Make the GM roll all the dice.
Oh, clever.
Then I survive and live forever.
He also says you want to roll metal dice, bring your own dice tray. So that I do use metal dice when I play at your place, Will, but I do have my dice tray and dice tower.
Yeah. Honestly,
I think
everybody get a
has
dice tray. It's courteous.
And they're fun.
Yeah. Also, it keeps your dice from flying across the table and into the floor, and then you lose that D4 out of that set, and now your set only has 6 dice, and it's the weird set in your bag, and you're like, what do I do with it? And eventually you stop using it.
A few of us play with the rule that
die from a set. I have lost sets, but I never lose one from the set. That's
wow.
Well, because I don't lend them not because of any kind of superstition that someone is going to jinx it. It's just no, they belong here. This is the family, and you do not just come in and take a member of the family. Oh my goodness, Randall has got a giant tube of looking dice.
Right behind this tube of dice, but.
A lot of us play with the rule that if it bounces out of the dice tray, doesn't count. It's got to be in there.
We play with the rule: if it falls off the table, it's you got to
Yeah.
re-roll it.
On the table or doesn't count. When I used to
Falls
run
off the table,
Warhammer at
gotta
Quantum
eat it.
Cards.
And I found a really cool rule that I saw on GMG. They were using to determine if a dice is canted. Is if you could easily set another dice on top of it and it won't fall off.
Yeah, D6 specifically.
Right. Put a D6 on top of it. If it doesn't fall off, it's not canted.
Canted. You're the only person I know that says canted. I forget what it means sometimes. All right. Feels like we are wrapping up. So any one last tip or trick that you want to share? And if not, what is your now revised ideal hybrid table that you've come out of this conversation with? So let's start with Will.
I think my hybrid table dream is still something where the physical pieces will directly interact with what is happening in Foundry. So that way my virtual players and my real players have the best of both worlds. They know what's going on. They can see everything. They still have the tactile ability. I think something that the viewers and listeners need to take away is it's not incredibly difficult or expensive to have a setup where you have good audio, good video. I mean, obviously, internet bandwidth will always be an issue, but again, as Randall mentioned, like phone calls are still a thing that don't need bandwidth, and it's not terribly difficult or expensive to get a good setup to have your faraway friends still play as if they were home.
And sorry, I had a thing that was important and it's gone now.
Oh, no.
We've all
well,
got
you
that.
know- I know
also
I just-
those setups are cheap, and they also can be super portable. If you don't, this doesn't need to be something that you set up and leave up. This is something that can go in a bag.
Pretty small bag. They tend to they're all telescopic usually and can condense down really
Yeah.
small.
Like a shaving kit. You could fit it in a shaving kit.
I know we just started the wrap up, but there's something that we didn't bring up. It's a Kickstarter that at least 3 of the 4 of us have backed.
was
that I
Give me a
think
minute.
is definitely worth bringing up. Dungeon Alchemist by Wim DeHert. It is currently on Kickstarter, and it is just a joy to watch that preview video. Like that video, since I backed the Kickstarter, has come up as an ad on YouTube several times, and it's like a 3.5 minute video, and I've watched it every time that it comes up as an ad because it is just so satisfying. Well, because it's amazing. You just draw a digital room of like, all right, I need a whole map that's
I need a hallway
40
this
by
long
40.
and a hallway.
Exactly. Boo, and it's dressed and everything. And that's what I like. I like that I don't have to make any decisions. I just have to react to the decisions for dressing and whatever that were procedurally generated by the program. So if I open a room, I say, I want a dungeon. That's the only choice I make. Pops up. It's got the nice gray wooden texture. It's got pots in the corner. It's like, well, I don't want any pots. I can delete the pots, but I didn't have to look at an empty room and decide, does it need pots? What needs to be in this corner? Nothing like that. It does so much of the thinking that I am bad at and just lets me react to it. And then you can export it as a 2D version of the map. You can keep it as a 3D map and play it on virtual tabletops. It is so exciting. I know it's just
imported directly into Foundry with walls and doors already set up. It blows my mind.
Can I 3D print it?
They said not in the FAQ. They said that 3D printing is not available yet, but it is on their radar. But they don't have a timeline for it.
If you want, Param, if you want 3D printed terrain like that, I can point to another one called Townsmith.
I already have Townsmith.
Okay, I've backed it multiple times. It's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
You've backed it multiple times. I guess
they had a second Kickstarter to add more sets to the to the software.
The second Kickstarter was super cheap in comparison, so it was definitely worth looking into if you had the first one. So.
I find that as GMs, we always have to wear multiple hats. And you initially, especially for new GMs, you think, I have to be this character. But you don't realize, if you're doing homebrews, especially, and you're making your own maps, you have to be an interior designer. You have to have, some sort of city planning knowledge. You have to have, all these things so that your maps make sense for people, unless you're going fully theater of the mind. But this is a tool of pure convenience. It is so nice and so easy, and it just takes a lot of the prep and time out, especially the way you GM, Ryan.
Yes.
My God, it's beautiful.
That is why I've been so attracted to this. Like, I like to do a physical space map because I can have the blank map that I just take a marker on, and it's like, there. It's a terrible looking room, but everyone acknowledges it's a room. And this lets me do that, and it looks amazing. It's way better than my Zaza rooms.
Yeah, you just have to, you'd be like, okay, you want to go in here? Hadn't planned for that. Give me 3 minutes, and you draw the map, hit print, and then suddenly we'd have a map.
Yeah, I can just be like, so what do you all want to do today? And one of the players could be like, I want to follow that nun home and see if she's got anything demonic in her basement. It's like, well, I didn't have a nun's house or a demonic basement ready, but give me 10 seconds and I can literally make that, and we can go from there.
Right.
Yeah, that actually speed is one of the reasons I've been using Astral Tabletop. I have had bad luck with all of the different tabletop options. I've spent 3 or 4 attempts at Foundry, about a half hour each attempt, and I haven't been able to make a map. Like, I don't know what my deal is. I didn't like Roll20 for similar reasons, but for some reason, Astral Tabletop, I was able to open it up and in 10 minutes figure out maps, get tiles loaded in, and on the fly I could make a map and throw walls up in like 3 minutes. So
There's something else I'm really interested in doing this is hoping that it gives me the camera control I want, because what you can do, we're talking about the TV on the wall situation, is if you set up your spaces, you could set up like common spaces or spaces where like even social events are happening, bring the camera down perspective level, and then it can become the background image that you use to put the characters on your displays while they're talking to the NPCs.
Well, one of the things that I was picturing for my hybrid setup would be one fixed camera and then one camera that's just, it's set up in Discord, and I tell people whether to pay attention to it or not. And when it's time, I pick it up and I can do the zoom ins and stuff and change the camera that people are paying attention to. They'll always have both cameras on the screen. And depending on how they're displaying their Discord chat, they can click to enlarge it, or they can just look at a different box on the screen, and it changes the context of what they're looking at.
Being able to use your phone as the webcam in that situation would be really advantageous,
right,
because of the position of the camera. Like, you could get really low down if you just put it upside down and like drag it through, and you could do some, like, these phones are nuts. Like, the cameras on these they're insane.
And then if you wanted to get it even better, you can get a gimbal for your phone. Well, this is a gimbal for my camera, but they also make them for cell phones. And then you can have smooth pans as you move it through there.
I don't think I'd be able to do smooth pans even with the smoothest equipment.
Well,
was that the DJI Ronin?
No, this is the Zhiyun.
Ooh.
Yeah, I can't afford a Ronin. That's a little bit above my budget at the moment.
You just got to know how to talk to people and get that sponsorship. We'll talk.
Air quotes required. We can literally get sponsorships. We're a large established podcast.
Yeah,
there's a lot of on-site filming.
I'll hook you up with my buddy Mark. He'll hook you up.
Randall, what are you picturing for the hybrid game table of the future?
I'm really like we've been talking about, especially with, looking at the Vorpal boards and the Pixels dice and the Sages. I really see them all coming together. I don't know that I see them all coming together in one offering, but somebody's going to offer them all at once. I really see them all coming together with a backbone API where you pick and choose which of them that you want. But that's mostly because I'm a software developer and I like that and want that. But
you've thrown API around a couple of times.
Sorry,
everyone's just
that is a very thank you. So an API, it's just how different things interface with each other. It's the plug and play. So
you make a language so that two programs that can talk to each other.
Yes. Yep. Yeah. My apologies. But yeah. So like Foundry can do all the things. It can bring in your animated videos. It can do your walls. It can do your doors. But the ability to plug into Foundry, the ability to plug into Roll20, or have one thing that can plug into both. That I see.
So another idea for an example of API, when your virtual tabletop like Roll20 imports your character from Hero Lab,
yes,
it uses an API to do that.
Or Path Builder, So I would like to be able to plug into, okay, I have my way of storing data for Sage, but I know someone's going to want to import from Path Builder. So I'll be getting with the developer of that at some point and discussing that.
I didn't know. Ooh.
Yep. You make an API call request, and then you get a response, whether it's the info you want or go away, you got the wrong password.
Yep. But anyway, APIs aside, I see the future of hybrid gaming as you really just, okay, you pick the level you're comfortable with, and you pick the features that you're able to master, and you'll have multiple options for them, and you just combine them the way you want them. That's how I see it going. I really hope Sage is a part of all of your choices, but that's up to you, and whether or not you trust Sage as your overlord.
Randall, are you programming Sage, or is Sage programming you?
Who says I'm not Sage? I could be answering every one of your messages.
I believe that you are.
Yeah, CNET has a really cool video of how to fake video chat meetings that Randall has absolutely watched.
I have watched that also, where the guy pre-recorded all his everything. It was incredible.
Perm, what's your big takeaway from this episode, and how it affects how you see virtual tabletops?
Hybrid setups. I mean, this has been my role-playing life for most of my role-playing life. And what I would do to make the perfect hybrid setup is, there's a reason I'm installing camera mounts and C mounts and gantries up in here in my podcast studio / game room, and redesigning how everything is. I'm going to have like multicam setups, and so the players on the other end can look at this side of the table, look at that side of the table, let me look at the table itself, the game table. The GM suddenly says that everybody's looking at his face because I'm the GM and I'm making it happen. I need to do the dialogue right now. Please don't be looking at the minis. And just setting it up like a studio. Like, if you want the ultimate setup, there's a reason that actual play podcasts with video do things the way they do them now, like the ones that do in-person studios. Just look at what they're doing, and a lot of those solutions on how they're presenting this to you live is what you would want to do. You're basically making an actual play podcast with an audience of one.
I would greatly recommend, if you go multicam like that and microphone and all that, and you want transitions and all that, there are tools out there to make your life way easier. There's the Stream Deck, which is just a small device where you hotkey.
I'm using it to run this show right now.
Yeah, it's a great little device where you just say, okay, well, this button will do this button does this button does this, and you won't have to do anything complicated. There's also several iPad applications that will do the same thing.
Right. Including Stream Deck for your iPad.
Yeah.
Something I forgot to mention earlier when we were talking about low-tech solutions. Sorry to jump in, but this is something I think people might like. With a lot of the world going from public offices or office spaces and office buildings to lots of people working at home, keep an eye on used intercom conference phone systems. You'll probably be able to get some for fairly cheap these days. And most of them just have a speaker microphone plugs in them. So you can run the cable to where you need it to be and set it in the middle of your table or somewhere where everyone can hear and speak into it.
Oh, and to get an idea from one of our friend, not friends of the network, member of the network, Dustin Knight, Kitsune Warlock, if you can go get a used presentation camera that they use for in classrooms so that the teacher can show the document a projector up onto the projector instead of the old glass mirror thing where they write on the clear film. Those would be perfect for getting good clear shots of your game in progress as the top-down cam.
All right, before we wrap things up and move on to the news segments, Will, anything you want to shout out to, or how can people get in touch with you if they liked you after this and they want to follow you around everywhere?
Yeah, sure. On Twitter, I'm at Willatar. On Instagram,
how did you get that? I never noticed that's your Twitter handle.
Yeah, I know. Lucked out. There's only one of me. On Instagram, I'm a Will_makes_motion. So Will makes motion with underscores. And I think I'm in the No Direction Discord, so you could just @ me if you have anything that you want to ask about what I've said or anything like that. I think I'm at AntBen on Discord.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah. It's my gamer tag, AntBen.
Randall? Where can people find out more about you? Groundbreaking, which you haven't really brought up. Sage, which we have definitely brought up.
We've definitely brought up Sage. So yeah, no direction, podcast.com/groundbreaking. Every other Wednesday. Today was my every other Wednesday. Speaking of world building. So it's fun. It's going strong. I'm getting way too deep into the weeds on what a magical college / guild center would do to a city if all of your magical apprentices worked as guild members and worked in the local guilds in your city to improve the quality of life. So that's fun. Twitter, and I think pretty much I only use really Twitter and Discord, but I'm at Randall T. Meyer on Twitter and just at Randall on Discord. Easy to find, no direction. I'm always there.
Excellent. Well, thank you both. This was fun. You both really brought different levels of experience, and I like the way that you were feeding off of each other and inspiring one another, and adding to your shopping lists.
Oh, yes. I'm going to go make some terrible decisions after this.
All right. We will be right back with the news to cover Paizo Live, PaizoCon, and some news about the Lost Omens Ancestry Guide right after this.
And we're back.
In the Pathfinder News segment, we talk about all the latest happenings for the Pathfinder role-playing game from third-party publishers, licensees, or Paizo itself. Param, I see that you are both.
Yeah, this is not great. I'll fix it.
All right, while you're fixing it, I want to shout out to something Dom said in chat. One thing Dom does for dungeons is take literal house plans from real estate agent websites and base his maps on that. I think that's super cool. It reminds me of something Andrew Marlowe, who writes the Burst of Insights blog for No Direction. Something he said one time is that to do the weather, to simulate weather in his campaigns, instead of mapping it out or whatever, he just picks a real world city with an equivalent climate, picks a start date, and then just mimics the weather. And it's like, that is so simple and so easy to institute. And it's brilliant. Like, the reason that there's never any weather in my games, that it's always a nice, calm, sunny day, is because I don't want to be bothered with all that. But it wouldn't be a bother to just go to weather.ca and find a random city. So thank you, Dom, for that advice, and thank you, Andrew, for that advice from way back. But now we are ready to talk about the news, and we've got 3 items of news here. 2 of them are bigger than the other, but the last one, the one about the Lost Omens Ancestry Guide, makes up for the fact you weren't on last episode, in case, Param, you had any thoughts on the new hardcover for the Pathfinder campaign setting line.
I mean, I'm not going to go into like a big long spiel, but Lost Omens Ancestry Guide, I consider one of the must-haves right now for the sets. It really expands a lot of the character options available for both existing characters and new characters of the new ancestries, because of all the support it has for the already existing ancestries. It's kind of a product that, like, it's like, maybe I put this like 4th in line, maybe 5th in line of must-get books for a player.
So I was going to save that for last, but since we've already started talking about it, the news is that it is available and it's already been PFS sanctioned. And Woo-hoo! The thing is, just about everything in the book is uncommon or rare. Not just about, literally every single ancestry is. Now, the uncommon ones, there's a way to do it. It is the, what do you call it? It's some kind of point system so that you can earn and unlock. There we go. The achievement point system. So if you do not get a specific boon that says you can play a Flesh Warped or you can play a Strix, you can still actually, I'm not sure if those were uncommon.
That's the only way to do it anymore too. That they're not going to be doing the individual boons anymore.
No, it says that there is 2 ways of getting the access to these, either an individual boon or just the blanket spending your access. Your achievement point system.
Interesting.
That's what they said. I don't know what to tell you. Maybe now that there's just a whole bunch of new ancestries, there's no other way of accessing, like uncommon equipment, uncommon feats and whatnot. There are in storyline ways of accessing them, but the ancestries, you have to have an ancestry before you can start your character. So unless you're getting a boon for your next character, which is how it was done largely in 1st edition, there's no in progress way of getting that kind of boon.
I think this is absolutely a mistake on Pazo's part.
Oh, really?
You don't release a new toy and cut complete access of all of it off to your biggest play vector.
So it's not complete access, although I gotta say, I'm not super familiar with how achievement points work and how much you have to spend to get an uncommon access.
It's different for each one, so I would have to go see what the point cost is for. I know that they want to promote the achievement point system, but goodness, they could have at least thrown a bone and made a few of these accessible as a first character. Because, like, you're right, this is something down the road on like another. You're right, this is not a first character thing, and a new player that buys this book excited to play Pathfinder because they saw they could play a Grick. Because it's right here in this official Pathfinder book. Oh, I can't use this character in the official game. This is a bad call.
Oof. All right. Well, Zathos of Ristia says it's 80 for an uncommon ancestry, 160 for a rare. And is
that's a lot.
Tables? Like, do you get one?
No, it's basically old prestige.
Okay. So a couple per time you play, but
4.
Wow. Okay.
Think I might be wrong on this. I might be wrong. I
hope so,
I have not done
80.
a lot. I have not done a lot of GMing with the new system because COVID happened and I'm not running games physically in my local PFS venue anymore.
Yeah, Zathos of Ristia
well, yeah,
says
no,
you get
4,
4,
5,
5,
6
or
are
6 for playing.
Yeah, so yeah. That's a lot of games.
8, 10, or 12 for GMing. Okay, so
that's still a lot of games.
Yeah, I'm doing the math. It's 20 for an uncommon for a player, right? Approximately.
Yeah, if you're getting the minimum, you could get like 15 or so if you're getting 15 games or so. Math, like 12. I don't know, math. It's a lot of games, and if your average person that participates in PFS is going to be playing one game a week. So they're basically saying in half a year you can play this book you just bought that we've been promoting for weeks.
Well, or it's saying hopefully you've been playing a lot in the last half year, so that now that you've got the book, you've got these points to spend.
Yeah, I mean, I understand having some. They could have done that to some of them, or like some of the really out there options. But like, no, I'm sticking with bad call. I'm sticking with this was a bad decision. Like, you don't want disappointment to be your first exposure to a player base. And a lot of new players that are getting excited that Pathfinder has all these cool new options, because all the options is how Pathfinder markets itself. Like, the big draw to all of Pathfinder is it's the game that has everything. You don't want the giant book of options to be completely cut off to a person just sitting down at their first PFS table. Like, what if they bought this at a con, wanted to play it, sit down at the con, and suddenly they're told they can't play their character that they have been hyped about ever since they read through the book? That's going to happen at the next Gen Con.
Yeah, especially like I've had about a couple of hours to read up on how you gain access to these uncommon options, and I could not find an easy explanation for how many of these points it costs and and how many you get. Like, live chat really helped with that, and I suppose I could have gone into our Discord and just been like, hey, remind me of this very basic rule that I should probably know by now. But yeah, so it's perfectly reasonable to assume that someone's going to show up at the table with this book, not know those rules, and be told like, oh, you didn't notice the uncommon, or even worse, the rare. It's okay, you can play it, just GM for the rest of the year.
Right. 10 GM sessions to unlock an 80.1. If you're playing the average of once a week, and honestly, statistically, you're lucky if you're playing PFS once a week every week. A year to get a character, maybe a little less than a year. Like, I guess you could marathon it by doing a bunch of online conventions and stuff. But this is too much to ask. This is way too much to ask of players to get to play with these toys. I don't understand the rationale behind this decision at all.
Yeah, like, and I'm just thinking, because it's been explicitly stated and explained to me by Luis that rarity does not denote power. Rarity is simply how common to expect it in Galarian. And so the only thing you're doing is taking the Pathfinder Society characters where you should be expecting to find the exceptions. They are the most exceptional adventurers that you're likely to come across, and just show off the diversity of the the setting. Yeah, man. Okay, Param, let's say you were in charge of resetting that number. What would you reset
Okay.
it to?
I would say first I would be half the uncommons, or I would pick a handful of the uncommons maybe if we had to do this way to begin with, which I think is a mistake altogether.
Why is
I
your
think the
camera
actual
shaking so much right
solution,
now?
because I'm shaking my desk because
Okay.
I was being emphatic and honestly a little emotional about this. Like
Okay.
I'm actually upset. As somebody who very much markets and promotes this game to new players often, and also underprivileged players. These books cost $50 freaking dollars in an underprivileged community. That's a lot I'm asking my players to get. I'm picturing these kids that I work with that I have to buy pizza for because I can't trust that they're going to eat that night. Getting hyped and finally scrounging up to get this book to not get to play the thing they were hyped for. I'm really not cool with this. At first, I would say everything uncommon, go for it. And the rares would be the 80 points. That's how I do it. Working your butt off for a year to unlock a rare option seems about right. And then the uncommons should just be play it.
So how would you feel about one free uncommon option instead of just all uncommons free?
Sure, that would be fine. Yeah, one free thing on your, I don't know, like register on your account online and actually get your account set up online and fill out all that info to make it easier on your GM. You unlock a free uncommon. That would be fine.
Yeah, because we know that the gunslinger and the inventor, or maybe just the gunslinger,
Right.
is going to be an uncommon base class.
We got I'm very sorry, Civichitia or CV. I'm very sorry about mispronouncing the name. Saying why not all open from day one? Honestly, that's the approach I want them to take. That's the option. I mean, why would it matter? Like they're not power imbalanced. Like the few PFS. Like I can understand maybe Android or some like specific ones that might be troublesome if they're running around all the time and actually be a problem. But to make that decision, but all of them, no. I really, even if everybody was running around an Android, at one point in time, you have to ask, is the fun of the players worth more than the inconvenience that you're imposing upon them? And the answer is almost always going to be yes.
So now if it was something like prestige classes, which has like built into it the idea that this is rare and earned, and it is something you can build towards and you can play your character, and the points you're getting at the table playing that character can then be spent on that character. Yeah, okay, I'm a little more accepting of it. And like you said, the rare options, I am a little more understanding of, but uncommon doesn't feel like it should be that big of a barrier. And especially, so like I was trying to get at, the Guns and Gears classes will have uncommon classes, which means now we've got uncommon ancestries. We're going to have uncommon classes. That means to have a combination of Ancestry Guide and Guns and Gears class and ancestry, you would need to put in.
And this is going to be their marketing push for next right now, is like these cool new awesome classes for Pathfinder. If they block those behind a wall, oh my gosh, that's a dumb idea.
Well, I was expecting this to be a fluffy thing of just being like, well, it's available for PFS and now we can talk about the Ancestry Guide. This really opened up a can of worms.
Yeah, I mean, I don't get upset like this about Pathfinder often, and I can understand a lot of points of view, but I don't like it when it's introducing a barrier that, especially something that new players, younger players, or people. I'm trying to grow this community. I'm trying, especially locally, and anything that makes that harder is just a bad call. You need people excited about this stuff. And this book has been all over everything about Pathfinder lately. Heck, we did a whole show about it last thing to hype it up. Like, people are excited about, I'm going to get to play a Kitsune, I'm going to get to play a Grick, I'm going to get to do this and that. And now all of a sudden, nope. What was the point?
Okay, well, it's not that nobody is going to get to play it.
I know, but we both know that PFS is one of the absolute largest, if not the largest selection of the Pathfinder player base right now, especially in a world in which 5th edition exists.
I actually don't know what I would estimate the the amount, like the percentage at, but I definitely know that it is a major marketing tool for Paizo, and so that this goes directly against Paizo's best intent and best.
Well,
This
just
goes against. Anyway, go ahead.
look at it like this way. And I'm going to talk about PFS in general, okay, and organized play. And honestly, Paizo needs to respect organized play more than they do in general. But if you, this goes back to when I'm talking about when I was running a game store and I constantly was trying to get people to buy games, and that was my living. I fed myself on getting people to play games. And I found out very quickly people do not buy games they cannot play, or at least not regularly enough to keep food in my belly. Paizo has a lot of bellies they need to keep full. And so having a organized play program, even if just the knowledge that they know that on Thursdays they can come down to my store and absolutely use that brand new toy they just bought and have been hyping themselves up about and seeing ads for, and that's great, and they can do that and they can enjoy it and play at the table. When they don't have, and even if they go and make their own gaming groups, just the certainty that they have not wasted their time and money. Pathfinder is no longer the most popular role-playing game going anymore. It hasn't been in a while. So it's back to fighting for, it has to fight now for that attention. It has to fight. It's no longer the assumption that you're playing games. Oh, you must obviously be playing at least familiar with Pathfinder. It's not, and it's getting harder and harder, especially with second edition, where not everybody's moved over to second edition. It is silly easy to find a 5th edition game right now. And if they put barriers into the one humongous advantage they have, which is a very strong organized play program that everybody can get excited and hype and jump on in there, then they're shooting themselves in their own foot. They're one big advantage in order to keep this community active and vibrant. We can always say, constantly I see people say, I want to play Shadowrun, but nobody will play with me. I want to play this obscure game, but nobody plays it. All that's available is Dungeons and Dragons. At least Pathfinder, we can say, go to your local store. They run organized play. Not only can you play there, but you're going to meet people who want to play more. And if suddenly any toy that can't be used in organized play right now might as well not exist in the game system.
I think it's better we move on here. I think you've got really strong points, and it is something that I hope is being considered. I do want to point out that it did say that boons is one way to access these options, which surprised you. So that might be a new way that they will be emphasizing accessing these things and making them available as Stunt Monkey in chat is saying that it could be to incentivize people to come to conventions.
But the points are so high. Like, this is so much to ask. Like, having some of these toys as specials, or better yet, releasing those special things that they can't get in any book whatsoever, makes them even more special. If they were to take 5 or 10 of the cut material that they didn't put in this book, and there's always cut materials from these books because there's never enough pages, or at least paid a couple of $100 to get a writer to put something together, and they put it as this golden prize, this PDF that you can only get with 160 ACP, and you can play this special species that nobody else has. It's not available in any other book. This is the only way to get it. That would be amazing. But the thing that they market on the game shelves needs to be usable.
So we do have PaizoCon PaizoCon Online 2021 coming up. It's been announced they are returning to Memorial Day weekend. It is May 28th to 31st. It is a 4-day weekend in the United States. And they are advertising very similar to what they pulled off last year with PaizoCon 2020. Online games, live streamed events, live streamed celebrity games in the evenings, and it just says Pathfinder beginner box games. So I'm not sure exactly what they're talking about there. The Discord hub, which ended up being a huge part of it last year. 4 days of games on a variety of virtual tabletops and giveaways at the PaizoCon Discord channel.
It is likely to be a wonderful time.
Badges for PaizoCon Online 2021 cost $25 for the weekend. Did they cost anything last year?
No.
Well, that's a change.
I don't know how I feel about I know that like people gotta get paid.
Yep.
But at the same time, this is more of a marketing thing than a thing. I don't know. Like I
I
felt
don't know.
weird when Gen Con was paid for. I guess it depends on what they're doing. Like, I don't know. I don't know.
Shannon is asking if we are hosting the seminars again. We are not. We
No.
have to. We have been invited to participate in some way or to have a conversation about how we can participate. We have not had that conversation yet.
Mhm.
Well, thank you. He says he's loved last year's openers.
Thank you very much.
We are less than 100 days to PaizoCon 2021. I know that because the day after this was announced, Darren Kaldemeyer, the No Direction Network's official PaizoCon countdown correspondent, let us know we were 100 days away. All right, which brings
Darren,
us to
thank you so much.
Brings us to our last news item, and that is the announcement of Paizo Live. So this is a new talk show that they are going to be debuting on Friday, February 26th at 4 p.m. It is going to run until 6 p.m. This is all Pacific times. And every other month, they're going to do a 2-hour live Twitch show featuring Paizo staff, occasional guests, talking about all things Pathfinder, Starfinder. So Paizo has been doing a lot on their Twitch channel over the last couple of years. Most of it, if not all of it, has been online gaming. This is their first dedicated talk show. And
No, they had Dan was running a regular talk show for a while, and it kind of went when he left the company. That kind of went by the wayside.
Yeah, he left the company shortly after it launched too, right? Because
about 2 years ago,
of episodes.
Yeah, about 2 years ago was when he left. I'm not sure how much, but they used to do it, and it was really cool. Like, you know, it's really cool. It was like short little half-hour, 15-minute interviews and stuff to spotlight different things, and I really enjoyed it while it was running. So this sounds like a cool idea.
Yeah, I don't believe we have any information about who is going to be the host, or if there will be a regular host, or if it will just be a round table of whoever the Paizo guests are that week. It's going to cover Starfinder, Pathfinder. It's going to be covering adventures, hardcovers, the adventure paths, the world guides, basically everything. Any given week, they're going to have 2 hours worth of content to just dive into what's going on with Paizo. I know that they are planning on making some announcements on that show rather than just using the blog and using us for most of their announcements. And I imagine that they are going to front load the first episode with several announcements. So I'm definitely going to be checking out the first one. And it says that it will be available on YouTube after the fact. So I doubt I will catch it live, but I will probably be watching on YouTube, you know, the next day when I'm doing dishes or something. And that's the news.
Yep.
Ready to
Some
wrap
good
things
news.
up?
Yep.
All right. We'll be right back to wrap things up right after this.
Wrap-ups and shout-outs. Wrap-ups and shout-outs. Wrap-ups. Wrap-ups and shout-outs.
And we're back.
Thank you for joining us for episode 244 of No Direction, the No Direction Network's Pathfinder News, Reviews, and Interviews podcast. Before we go, we have some shout-outs for things of interest to us that we think might be of interest to you. First one on my list was Dungeon Alchemist, which we already covered in the episode. Yeah, I just think it's super cool. And at the very least, check out the video because it's very convincing. It's not just a bunch of big promises. It seems to have a whole bunch of examples of what they are actually are close to being able to execute. So most of the biggest promises are in that video and like seems to exist in some capacity. I like to give shout outs to different things that we have released, different No Direction Network content. So starting with a couple of Starfinder episodes in the last couple of weeks, our Starfinder podcasts have just been relevant to anyone that is interested in writing for Paizo, either like just the nitty gritty and liking the meta of it, or if you are individually interested in it. So Ron and John in Digital Divinations episode 24 did a topic called Writing for Starfinder, which again is basically writing for Pathfinder, especially because Ron develops the Adventure Path line. And then the last episode of No Direction Beyond 55, had editors Leo Glass and I'm sorry, I don't remember offhand, Kieran Newton were on and talking about how editing works at Paizo. And I mentioned in my Recall Knowledge editorial this week, we've wanted to have editors on for a long time, and the idea was that they are the unsung heroes. And this interview absolutely delivered on exactly the concept that I had for that episode. They were entertaining, they were informed, they showed the editors are superstars, that they are up there with the designers as people that you should be crediting for the quality of the options that you are getting, and making connections that almost nobody else is going to be making, because they are just looking at the system in a different light and from a different angle. So,
Everyone who writes professionally and has ever worked with an editor treasures their editors.
And I'm also giving a shout out to Dustin Knight, Kasune Warlock. His blog post last week was called "It's a Trap," and it's just about how to properly incorporate traps into an adventure, either as a GM or as an adventure writer. And he calls out a lot of the things that annoy me about trap early on, like when traps are they're just there, there's no drama to them, or they really are just a resource sink. And so he talks about just things to keep in mind, thinking of them more as just incorporating them into the adventure, and not just simple diversions from the otherwise more interesting aspects of your adventure. It's good, it's well written, and it's worth checking out. It was last week's Fox's Cunning, called "It's a Trap."
I want to give...
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, I want to give a shout out to Crystal Fraser right now,
Yay.
who was just announced as one of the authors for the new Ravenloft book coming out.
Was she?
Van Richten's Guide to Ravenloft, releasing in May. She was released as one of the authors, or it was announced that she's one of the authors.
Cool.
So,
I
congrats,
saw the
Crystal.
announcement. I did not see her name attached to it. Congratulations, Crystal.
Yeah, she is. For those of you who don't know, Crystal is first amazing, a good writer, a fantastic developer, and also one of the best GMs I've ever played under. And you can listen to those games on Adventurous,
which just came back this week.
And boy, did it come back! Oh my gosh, what a session!
Yeah, Crystal is really big on 5th edition, and so the fact that she's getting a Wizards of the Coast published hardcover, I'm sure she is ecstatic about that, and people that are interested in that game should definitely be excited to have Crystal attached to it.
Now she can complete her dream and maybe write for TMNT
someday.
The role-playing game, Other Strangeness.
Well, she could write for TMNT and Other Strangeness. I don't think anyone is paying attention to that right now. I don't know who has the rights to a TMNT RPG at the moment.
I don't know either.
All right. Next up, I'd like to give shout outs to podcasts that I listen to. So the next podcast on my feed is The Full Force. Full Force is a G.I. Joe podcast. It is a news podcast with occasional interview, occasional review of the comics, but generally it's just talking about the latest things happening in the G.I. Joe world. I like the personality of the hosts. I like their presentation. I tend to watch their videos on YouTube now more than I've been listening to the podcast, but I am still a subscriber. And I really like and have just kind of been interested in stealing their news burst format, where it's just, if there's any kind of news that are related to G.I. Joe, even if it's just a rumor or whatever, they'll release a 2 to 5 minute video summarizing it, putting a little entertainment, reminding you of connections and why it's likely, unlikely, and other things that have been happening related to that. And then at the end of the week, they release their Sunday edition or their Saturday edition, which is a summary of all those news items with a little more editorializing on it. So I've really come to like that format. They've only started adding the summary at the end of the week recently, and it's good. And at first I was like, well, I'm just going to listen to the summaries, but then I missed just the fun presentation of those short news bursts. So I've just started listening to them tell me the same G.I. Joe news twice a week in 2 different ways, and entertain me both times.
I want to shout out to a blog, the Museum of Artifacts. It is a fantastic little blog I discovered this week, where they find random artifacts that have been documented, and you're able to they put a lot of detail into describing them and where they've come from, and lots of pictures. It's just random artifacts from around the world, like this combination machete pistol, or Henry V's lion armor.
It's like if you took a rifle with a bayonet and reversed the scale.
Or this quote-unquote Swiss Army knife from Rome, 200 AD.
That's really cool.
Yeah. I love this little website, and it gives you an idea of, people in earlier times were very capable of making amazing things. We don't scroll fast. We don't need to. We do not need to limit ourselves to sticks and mud huts when we're describing our medieval settings.
Yeah, I just liked their Facebook page, and even just scrolling down it, there's a 1700s trench knife that basically has brass knuckles attached to. Oh, sorry, no, a 1917 trench knife that has brass knuckles attached to the handle.
Oh, and for your cleric / gunslingers, there is a Bible with a gun in it.
Sounds like something out of a Robert Rodriguez movie.
Like I said, it's a fantastic little website. Go check it out. It's amazing.
All right, are we about ready to wrap things up, Pam?
I think we are.
So remind people that, just because the episode is ending doesn't mean that we're done for the night.
Indeed, our patrons, if you want to support us on Patreon, we would very much appreciate it. You can do so at patreon.com/no-direction. It's their patrons that enable us to continue to keep our network growing and going. We are only able to do what we do because of your support. And also, our patrons get to participate in a special after episode, the after party, the private sanctum of No Direction that happens after every No Direction episode over on the No Direction Discord. As soon as you sign up on Patreon and then sign into our Discord server, it flags you. You're able to join and participate in the after show. We hope to see many of you there. Also, while you're at nodirectionpodcast.com, that's where you can find our Discord link and all of the other blogs that are and podcasts that are on the network. Because if you're just listening to the pod feed, you're only getting half of the awesome Pathfinder Starfinder gaming material that is available from No Direction. We have a stable of amazing writers that are gifting us and working at their time to provide wonderful content to you. And it's also free, which is my favorite price tag for good gaming content. And you can do so at nodirectionpodcast.com. If you want to catch this show or any of our other shows, you can catch us at twitch.tv/nodirection, youtube.com/nodirectionshow. You can also find us on Facebook at facebook.com/nodirection and at Twitter at twitter.com/nodirection.
Until next time, I'm Ron Costello.
And I'm Jefferson J. Thacker, also known as Param.
And if you want to find the path, you need no direction.